In Gilded Age, Season 3, Episode 7, John's death wasn't just unexpected, it was devastating. And not just for Oscar, but for everyone watching. One second he's there, gentle and kind, and the next, gone. Right in front of the one person who finally found the courage to feel something real. This episode is called Excommunicated, and after watching it, you'll understand why that title cuts deeper than we thought. Because what happens next doesn't just shake up the characters we love, it rips open the fragile world they've built, and suddenly, no one is safe. Not Oscar, not Marion, not Peggy, and yes, they're blaming Bertha again for everything. Oscar might have been quiet about his feelings for John, but for anyone paying attention, the affection was there, soft glances, thoughtful gestures, and that rare vulnerability he tried so hard to hide. John was his safe place, the one person who truly saw him. So, when John was taken from him, suddenly, violently, it shattered something deep inside. The scene may have been short, but the impact, lasting. Oscar's grief doesn't explode the way we might expect. It seeps in, slowly. He doesn't scream or lash out. Instead, he places John's photo next to his own. A quiet, painful ritual of remembrance. His mother, trying to make sense of his sadness, brushes it off like men don't feel things the way women do. But we know better. We saw it, and thankfully, so did Marion. When Oscar breaks down, it's Marion who's there. She holds him, listens to him, understands him without asking too much. That moment between them, tender and raw, is one of the few real connections left in a world that keeps tearing people apart. But here's the thing. This isn't just about grief. It's about secrets. Oscar's entire life has been built on silence. Pretending, hiding, and now, after John's death, that silence is eating him alive. You can see it in his eyes. Feel it in the way he walks through the Russell house like a ghost. John's death may push Oscar to a breaking point, one where staying quiet isn't an option anymore. And that's where the tension really begins. Because once Oscar starts talking, once he starts being honest, the ripple effects will be massive. Not just for him, but for everyone tied to him. People like Marion, who just made a mistake that might cost her everything. Let's talk about her. Marion Brooke. She's supposed to be the thoughtful one. The one who sees through the noise, the pretense. And yet, in this episode, she lets fear and assumptions guide her. After Larry leaves for Arizona, she reads a letter, or maybe hears a whisper, and decides it's over. Just like that. She cuts him off, doesn't wait, doesn't ask questions, just walks away. And the worst part, she does it in the most impersonal way possible, through a letter. No confrontation, no conversation, nothing. It's a decision that feels rash, even selfish. Because Larry wasn't just off chasing copper, he was fighting for his future, their future. And when he returns with the kind of news that could change everything, he finds Marion gone, out of reach. Unwilling to listen, this is where things turn cold. Larry's hurt, obviously, but George, he's furious. And instead of pointing fingers at the real cause, miscommunication, distance, fear, both men look to Bertha. Because of course, it must be her fault. She's the schemer, the puppet master, the reason everything goes wrong, right? Wrong. Bertha Russell has done a lot of things, ambitious things, ruthless things. But this, Marion's breakup with Larry, that's not on her. And yet, the men in her life keep piling blame on her shoulders. It's not just unfair, it's exhausting. And in this episode, you can see that exhaustion start to crack through her carefully polished exterior. But here's the twist. Bertha doesn't crumble. She doubles down. With the scandalous book ripping through society and threatening her social standing. She doesn't hide. She steps into Mrs. Astor's drawing room not as a victim, but as a fixer. And you know what? She might just pull it off, while everyone else is falling apart. Bertha's preparing for war, and society might not be ready for what she has planned. Because when Bertha Russell fights back, she doesn't just protect herself. She rewrites the rules. And speaking of rules, let's not ignore the quiet war brewing in Peggy's world. It's easy to miss if you're focused on John's death or Marion's mistakes, but Peggy's story is just as dangerous and maybe even more explosive. Because unlike the others, she's not just dealing with personal heartbreak. She's being hunted, not with guns or knives, but with secrets. And Mrs. Kirkland, she's holding all the ammunition. Peggy has fought for everything, her career, her voice, her dignity, and now, just as it seems she's finally finding some balance, the past threatens to drag her down again. And this time, It's not William's hesitation or society's quiet judgment that's the real problem. It's Mrs. Kirkland from the very beginning. Mrs. Kirkland has acted like she was doing everyone a favor simply by existing in the room. Judgy, cold, and obsessed with status. She's been watching Peggy from the sidelines, pretending to be concerned, but it's clear now that her concerns are less about Peggy's well-being and more about control. In episode 7, that mask of politeness finally starts to slip. The way she looks at Peggy, the way she talks to William about her, it's all coded, sharp, and dangerous. She pretends she's worried about Peggy's ability to handle things, especially when it comes to William's son. But what she's really doing is planting doubt, not just in her son's mind, but in anyone who will listen. And now, she's got something new. Information, something about Mr. Fortune. Something she believes can be weaponized. And if she uses it, Peggy's entire world could crumble. Now let's take a step back. What exactly is it that Mrs. Kirkland knows, or thinks she knows? We're not told everything outright, but from the way the camera lingers and the way she speaks with such icy confidence, it's clear she believes she has the upper hand. Maybe it's about Peggy's son, or the real details behind her connection to Mr. Fortune. Maybe it's something about her past that she's tried to keep private, something painful. Whatever it is, Mrs. Kirkland isn't holding it close for no reason. She's waiting, watching. And in classic Gilded Age fashion, she'll probably drop it at the worst possible moment. Not for clarity, not out of concern, but for power. Because that's what these women do. They smile with their mouths and cut with their words. And right now, Peggy's in the crosshairs. But here's what makes Peggy different. She's not like the others. She doesn't have a mansion to hide in. She doesn't have old money protecting her. What she has is truth, strength, and dignity. That doesn't mean it'll be easy. If William starts to question her again, if he lets his mother drive a wedge between them, it could destroy everything they've rebuilt. And let's be honest, William's track record hasn't exactly been dependable. He loves Peggy. That's clear. But does he trust her enough to stand by her when things get messy? That's the question. And it's not just about love, it's about loyalty. It's about who he listens to when the stakes get high. Peggy's been burned before. And if it happens again, it'll be more than just heartbreaking, it'll be infuriating. Because she deserves better. She's earned better. And here's the irony. While Peggy is under attack from someone who claims to care about her son's well-being, William's the one acting like a child. In episode 6, he refused to hear her out. She tried to come clean, to share something difficult, and he shut her down. That's not strength. That's fear. It's easier for him to stay blind than to face the truth head-on. But now, that truth is coming whether he's ready or not. And this time, it's coming from his mother, not Peggy. And trust me, it won't be gentle. Mrs. Kirkland's going to twist it, sharpen it, and deliver it in a way that makes Peggy look like the villain. And if William falls for it, it won't just hurt Peggy. It'll reveal everything we need to know about who he really is. Meanwhile, back at the Russell household, another mystery is unraveling. 4 episodes now. There have been whispers, subtle clues, little details hinting that someone has been leaking information to the press. Bertha, for all her flaws, runs a tight ship, and she doesn't tolerate disloyalty. But no matter how many eyes she has in that house, someone's been slipping through. In episode 7, the focus sharpens. The tension grows. And suspicion lands squarely on Bertha's maid Andre. She's been quiet, observant, and maybe just a little too good at being in the right place at the wrong time. But here's the thing. If Andre really is the mole, she's playing a dangerous game. Because once Bertha finds out, there won't be a second chance. She's not just a social climber, she's a strategist. And traitors. She doesn't forgive them. Still, Andre isn't the only suspect. Fans on Reddit and even some of the characters are pointing fingers in different directions. Mrs. Bruce's name keeps coming up. And honestly, it's not a wild theory. She's been around long enough to know where the skeletons are buried. And if she wanted to shift the balance of power, leaking stories to the press would be one way to do it. But whoever it is, they're getting bolder. And the damage is starting to show. Rumors are spreading, reputations are cracking. And Bertha's position, the one she's fought tooth and nail for, is slipping. Not because she's failed, but because someone inside her world is working against her. And that betrayal cuts deeper than anything society could ever throw. At her dot, this is what makes Gilded Age so brutal and brilliant at the same time. It's not always the grand scandals or the headline-grabbing moments that destroy people. Sometimes it's the quiet betrayals, the whispered rumors, the misplaced trust. And in episode 7, we see all of it coming to the surface. Oscar grieving in silence. Marion regretting too late. Peggy fighting a war no one sees. And Bertha, the one they always blame, holding everything together while the walls close in. But trust me, she's not going down without a fight. Bertha Russell has been clawing her way to the top since the day she set foot in high society. And just when it seemed like she might finally be accepted by the old money elite, someone lights a match and tosses it into the powder keg. That match, a scandalous book called Society as I Have Found It. And trust me, this isn't just another piece of idle gossip. It's a bomb disguised as literature, filled with half-truths and malicious exaggerations that expose the dark underbelly of New York's most powerful families. And Bertha knows exactly what it could mean for her. She may have earned her seat at the table, but this book threatens to rip the tablecloth off and expose the cracks in everything she's built. When Mrs. Astor herself warns that the book ridicules society and will wreak havoc. You know, it's serious. This isn't just social embarrassment. It's reputational destruction. One well-placed rumor, one distorted version of the truth. And everything Bertha worked for could vanish overnight. But Bertha doesn't panic. She calculates, she listens. And then she responds. Her line in the trailer, "The only way to stop gossip is the truth," isn't just a statement. It's a warning. Because if they want to play dirty, Bertha can dig just as deep. She's not a victim of the system anymore, she's part of it. And if this book intends to shame her, to mock her ambition and spin her rise as something vulgar or manipulative, then she flipped the narrative. That's what she does. But here's the twist. This time, Bertha isn't fighting alone. In an unexpected moment of alignment, Mrs. Astor, the very gatekeeper of New York society, discusses her Newport ball with Bertha. It's a symbolic gesture, yes, but also a sign that Bertha's enemies are now facing a common threat. The book doesn't just mock the new money climbers, it mocks everyone. And that's something even Mrs. Astor won't tolerate still. The real danger isn't just the book itself, it's how people react to it. In a world where image is everything, even a hint of scandal can cause total collapse. Investors pull out. Friends turn cold. Invitations vanish. And Bertha knows how quickly admiration can become contempt. The high society elite never loved her, they merely tolerated her success. Now, they'll see this book as an excuse to push her out, to restore the natural order of things. And that's where episode 7 becomes something bigger than just another installment in a period drama. It becomes a war for survival. A war Bertha never wanted, but is more than prepared to win. Because unlike the rest, she's not shackled to tradition. She's not trying to protect an old name, she's building a new one. And if that means burning a few bridges along the way, then so be it. But as Bertha plays this dangerous game, she's also juggling a crisis at home. Her husband George is unraveling after the Clay disaster, the business fallout, and Larry's heartbreak. Larry's trip to Arizona gave them hope. The copper discovery could have saved the entire operation. But instead of coming home to celebration, he finds confusion, betrayal, and his future wife gone. And George, he's not handling it well. He lashes out, blames Bertha, accuses her of sabotaging Larry's relationship, and while George may be a powerhouse in business, he's a mess when it comes to his family. He wants order, predictability, control. And when things go wrong, he points fingers. This time, at the woman who's been holding their world together with both hands. And here's the painful part. Larry believes him, or at least, he wants to. Because it's easier than admitting that maybe Marion just didn't trust him enough. That maybe she doubted him. Not because of Bertha's influence, but because she didn't know how to handle uncertainty. So the blame game begins, and Bertha becomes the scapegoat. Again, it's infuriating. Watching these men unload their failures onto her like she's responsible for their emotional immaturity. And yet, Bertha doesn't flinch. She's hurt, yes, but she's also focused. Because she knows what's coming, and it's not just family drama or social scandal. It's war. And she has no intention of losing. Meanwhile, Oscar's grief is festering into something more than sadness. In public, he keeps it together barely. But behind closed doors, the cracks are showing. His mother still doesn't understand the depth of his pain. She thinks he's just mourning a friend. But Marion knows better. She saw the look in his eyes, the way his voice broke, the kind of grief that only comes from losing someone you loved in silence. And this silence is becoming too heavy for Oscar to carry. John's death might become the tipping point, the moment that finally pushes him to speak his truth. Not to everyone, but maybe to the people who matter. And if that happens, the emotional landscape of this show could shift forever. because Oscar has always been the one playing by society's rules, hiding behind charm and wit. But grief changes, and if he starts to live honestly even just a little, the ripple effect could be massive. At the same time, something else is bubbling under the surface, something no one is prepared for. The leak inside the Russell home isn't just a minor betrayal. It's a sign that someone close, someone trusted, has turned. Andre may be the obvious choice, but Bertha is too smart to settle for obvious. She's going to dig, watch, test her staff. And when she finds the mole, and she will, it won't end quietly. Because this leak isn't just about reputation, it's about power. And if Bertha's enemies think she'll let that power slip through her fingers, they clearly haven't been paying attention. What makes episode 7 so devastating isn't just John's death, it's the way every storyline is threaded together by one thing. Oscar loses the man he loved. Marion loses the future she thought she wanted. Peggy risks losing her chance at happiness. And Bertha, she stands to lose everything she's built. But the difference between these characters is how they respond. Some retreat, some fight. And some, like Bertha, begin planning their next move with fire in their eyes. While chaos breaks out in almost every corner of this world, there's one character who has been quietly evolving in the shadows, and now she's ready to step forward. Gladyce Russell, the sweet, naive girl who once clung to her mother's rules and lived in the shadow of her family's ambitions, is no longer the same girl we met in Season 1. Episode 7 gives us a version of Gladyce that is sharper, bolder, and most importantly done playing by anyone else's rules. And the best part, you can see it in her eyes. The way she holds herself, the way she speaks, the moment she pushes back against Sarah, the woman who used to have full control over her. It becomes clear that something inside her has shifted. Gladyce isn't afraid anymore. She's observing, calculating, learning. And when she finally speaks, she doesn't do it out of emotion. She does it with precision, timing, and intention. This isn't some outburst. It's a move. A power move. Gladyce's newfound confidence doesn't just rattle Sarah, it threatens her completely. Sarah's control has always come from subtle manipulation, guilt-tripping, and soft threats. But suddenly, those tricks don't work. And you can see Sarah's confusion turn to fear. Because once Gladyce stops being compliant, Sarah becomes irrelevant. She's no longer the puppet master, just a woman with fading influence. And that terrifies her. In episode 7, their interactions become a battleground of words. And every time Gladyce holds her ground, Sarah loses more of hers. This power shift is one of the most satisfying parts of the episode, not just because it shows Gladyce's growth, but because it adds another layer of complexity to the Russell household. A house already cracking under pressure, but don't get it twisted, Gladyce isn't turning into Bertha. She's not ruthless, she's strategic. And more than that, she's watching how everyone around her moves, learning what to do and what not to do. She sees her mother blamed by her father and brother. She sees the staff quietly divided. She sees love turned into leverage and secrets used as weapons. And through all of that, she's choosing her own path. That doesn't mean she won't stumble. It doesn't mean she won't make mistakes. But it does mean that she's no longer willing to be a pawn in anyone else's game. And in this world, that's a revolution. And speaking of games, let's return to the one person who never stops playing, Bertha. While her daughter claims her independence and her husband tries to rebuild his business, Bertha is navigating a battlefield so treacherous, even she has to tread carefully. The book has thrown everything into chaos. Her home is under suspicion. Her reputation is hanging by a thread. And society, the same society she spent years trying to impress, is suddenly looking at her like a stain that needs to be scrubbed away. But if they think Bertha will go quietly, they haven't been paying attention. This is the woman who turned a train tycoon's wife into a queen of New York society without ever being truly accepted. This is the woman who hosted the opera gala of the season and forced the elite to attend. And now, faced with the most personal attack yet, she's not hiding. She's calculating. What's brilliant about episode 7 is how it shows Bertha shifting her strategy. She's not trying to win approval anymore. She's trying to build her own system, one that doesn't need validation from people like Mrs. Astor, but can still beat them at their own game. And if that means using the Newport Ball as a battleground, so be it. The conversation between Bertha and Mrs. Astor in the trailer wasn't just two socialites exchanging pleasantries. It was two powerhouses deciding the fate of their own universe. And while Bertha might still need Astor's name, she's no longer begging for her seat at the table. She's creating her own, and people are starting to notice. Yet all of this plays out while the emotional weight of John's death hangs heavy over everything. Oscar, for all his elegance and wit, is unraveling behind closed doors. And the worst part is, no one knows what to say to him. His grief is silent, personal, invisible to those who don't know the truth. His mother still treats it like a social inconvenience, like John was just another friend lost to time. But Oscar isn't just mourning a companion. He's mourning the possibility of love, of honesty, of a life that was finally beginning to feel real. And with John gone, that door has slammed shut. But perhaps not forever, because in that one heartbreaking scene where Marion holds him as he weeps, something shifts. Not just in Oscar, but in the audience watching. For the first time, someone sees him. Someone allows him to feel without shame. And that kind of moment, raw and unscripted, can be life-changing. It could be the beginning of something new for Oscar. Not another romance, but a rebirth of identity. The kind of shift that turns a background character into a central figure. Because if Oscar decides to live honestly, even just in private, it could send ripples through every corner of this society. He's always played the part of the charming bachelor, the loyal son, the refined gentleman. But underneath it all, he's just a man who wanted to be loved and lost everything in the process. And now, he has nothing left to lose. This is what makes episode 7 so powerful. It's not just the shocking moments, though there are plenty. It's the emotional fallout, the subtle transformations, the power that comes from pain, and the danger that comes from silence. Everyone is either evolving or collapsing. Marion, once confident and composed, now finds herself unsure and adrift. Larry, once clear-eyed and hopeful, now questions everything. Peggy, strong and brilliant, faces a force determined to undermine her worth. And Bertha, the architect of her family's rise, stands on the edge of a social cliff, not because she failed, but because someone else lit the fire.